Hello, hello. Welcome back to the P2P Soap Box. I'm your host and P2P BFF, Marcie Maxwell. Here's a challenge many of us face. How do you build a high-performing leadership team when most or all of your volunteer executive committee turns over every single year? It's like coaching a sports team where you lose all your star players at the end of each season and have to start fresh with rookies. But what if I told you there's an organization that's mastered this exact challenge and they're doing it at a massive scale? Today, I'm joined by Suzanne Graney, Executive Director of Four Diamonds, the organization behind Penn State's Dance Marathon, better known as THON. Four Diamonds has an incredible mission to conquer childhood cancer. Since 1972, they've helped more than 4,800 children and families by covering 100% of medical bills for every Four Diamonds family while funding cutting-edge pediatric cancer research. THON consistently ranks on the U.S. peer-to-peer top 30, coming in at number 25 in 2024, and it's entirely student-led. Every year, Suzanne and her team face the ultimate leadership challenge, taking brand new student volunteers and transforming them into a unified, mission-driven team capable of executing one of the country's largest peer-to-peer campaigns. From rapid-fire onboarding techniques to year-round engagement strategies, Suzanne is here to share how she builds leadership pipelines when your talent pool completely refreshes annually and what she's learned about coaching today's generation of volunteer leaders. So let's jump in to my conversation with Four Diamonds, Suzanne Graney. Suzanne, welcome to the P2P Soap Box.
Thanks so much, Marcie. It's great to join you here.
I love it. I love it. Well, I know you have been in the industry for a while, and similar to me, I would love to just hear a little bit about your kind of personal journey, professional journey that led you to your role at Four Diamonds.
I'm happy to share that. My career started in nonprofit communications, and I learned pretty early on the power of storytelling, which really kind of became a theme throughout my career. I had a brief stint in a congressional office running a freshman congressman's communications team, and learned that I really missed the mission. Government work didn't fulfill that for me. So I loved that I had that experience. I had pretty intense crisis comm experience during 9/11 and anthrax and going to war. Thought I want to use these skills in a completely different way, and had the opportunity after that experience to head into development. And I was seeking a way to use all of those communication skills and also be more purposeful about metrics and the measurement and how to, and now the world of communications has changed and it's very metrics driven.
Completely.
It really wasn't. And fundraising really started to fulfill that desire to be able to measure the impact of the work that I was doing. And I had a great opportunity to work within public broadcasting. And it's been interesting to see like live stream fundraising instantly click to me. This is so similar to on-air pledge.
Oh my gosh, agreed.
Yeah. And I just had a really wonderful opportunity to learn so much in that role. And I was tasked with leading a cancer education project, was my final project in public broadcasting, which introduced me to my role at Four Diamonds. And all of the stars aligned, and I call it my yellow brick road of experience, led me perfectly into the role that I'm in now.
I love that. You know, I cut my fundraising teeth on radiothons as well. And I sometimes listen and I think there's some similarities there. There's some lessons learned from your kind of old school radiothon, pledge-a-thon days that are still relevant in the world of peer-to-peer.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, the repetition of message is one of the things that I walked away from that experience knowing if we can layer that message, it's so much more powerful. And what are all the touch points. And we've definitely been able to put that into good use in the work in Four Diamonds.
I love it. Well, let's talk about Four Diamonds. So not everyone might be familiar with the name Four Diamonds. Can you kind of give us that quick overview of your peer-to-peer portfolio and what y'all do?
Absolutely. Four Diamonds in a nutshell is focused on conquering childhood cancer. That's our mission. That's our quest. That's our North Star. How do we get to helping to have a world that doesn't have childhood cancer? And the way that we do that is through the mobilization of youth and young adults. Our sweet spot has been within the collegiate world, and we have the Penn State Dance Marathon as our loyal partner. We're coming up next year on our 50th year of partnership, which is just incredible. And we had a second program that grew out of that, modeled after the Penn State Dance Marathon in the K through 12 space. And that program's been with us for more than 30 years. And it's been exciting to watch both of these programs grow substantially in the last decade and a half and get to play a role in helping to make that happen. And we have a growing area of community fundraising. So that's the smallest part of our portfolio, but grateful patients who want to do something meaningful and give back in their own communities and other community members. So we have probably about 100 events in our local community run by community members to benefit us every year.
So dig in a little deeper on THON, because I think a lot of us have heard of it, but it's got some special magic.
Oh, it sure does. I mean, when I think about THON, it is the granddaddy of all college fundraising in the peer-to-peer space. It's the oldest and longest running dance marathon in the country and in the world. THON has been validated as the largest student-run philanthropy in the world. And more than 16,000 students dedicate more than 5 million hours of their volunteer time every year to make the magic of THON come to life. And we have been so fortunate to get to be both their fundraising coaches and partners, but also their exclusive beneficiary of their fundraising efforts. So we've got this really beautiful partnership between our very small team, our Children's Hospital, our College of Medicine, and the students at Penn State University. And we are part of Penn State University. Four Diamonds is based at Penn State. We're a gift fund within the university.
So we are just kind of at the beginning of the school year, right? And what I think is can be a blessing and a challenge with college fundraisers is, your executive committee for THON, they're critical to your success, but they're turning over every single year and often very distracted college students by a lot of different things going on. So knowing, coming off of summer, how do you approach onboarding a brand new team every year, getting them aligned, motivated, and kind of moving in the right direction?
Well, to the outside world, THON happens in February every year. But our reality is THON is every day. There is never a day that THON is not part of the work that we're doing and part of what we're thinking about. So I think that helps. And the students have a similar philosophy. THON, their term is THON is tomorrow. Everything, it's always coming right up for them. And I think you have a double-edged sword. You've got this interesting challenge of how to bring the teams together really quickly and maximize what's going to happen in that year. But you also have the energy and the enthusiasm that's infused every year and gets everybody really excited about a new year. And that intense amount of energy helps to propel all of us forward. So some of the things that we do, we're making sure that we're meeting the team and we're getting to know them as individuals, because the more we can know who a person is, the more we build trust. The more trust that is inherently there, the faster we all work together. So we do team building. We bring the executive committee to our hospital for a 2-day retreat, getting to know our team, getting to know each other, shared language, shared values, and making sure that they are able to see the impact of the work that they're doing. We likewise bring tour groups to the hospital 3 days a week for 5 months of the year. So we have a really robust tour program, making sure the students who are actively participating have an opportunity to come see in action the the hard work that they're doing, and what does that mean? How does that translate on the back end to a patient that is being served and how they're being served?
I love that. So you say that THON is, a one-day event, well, more than one day, but the leadership
46-hour event.
Yeah, a very long day, but the leadership happens all year. So what does that full calendar look like, and how do you keep them focused year round? I think sometimes for a lot of us, whether it's college kids or not, keeping a committee of volunteers driven and seeing their progress throughout the year, how do you do that?
Yeah, I think part of what I was doing in public broadcasting has helped in this arena. Or if anybody has ever run a direct mail program, I think of that like a train schedule. You got to hit this date in order to have everything out on time, in order to have the dollars come in time, in order to be able to use at a particular time. So that kind of, in my mind, train schedule approach works for us to be able to say, here are the milestones to meet throughout the year. In March, a new executive director of THON is selected every year, and then their team is selected shortly after that. And then there is a process to select captains who are working under those teams. So there is a spring piece of recruitment that is happening. There are milestones that we're meeting over the summer. So many of these students are in internships and pretty intense internships. So scheduling over the summer is, one of those really interesting puzzles to put together. How many lunchtime meetings, how many after-hour meetings need to happen? Because we need to be able to accommodate where they are. Can we meet them where they are? And again, that bring them to campus right before they're heading back to State College is an annual piece that we all look forward to. They have a 5K, so setting the line in the sand on when that date is going to be, which drives some other decisions. A couple of matching giving days happen, so then they're calendared out. And then boom, before we know it, we're at holiday break. And we know that that's when we turn from planning to full-on execution. We come back in January after that holiday break, and we are running to the finish line.
Oh my goodness. That is a full year sprint. And I'm sure even before the executive director gets selected, you're probably already on your team kind of scouting out
100%.
who might be a good person.
Yes. Yeah. That is done behind the scenes. Part of my role is to coach the student who is the executive director. We do weekly coaching calls. And part of that conversation is talk to me about how your team's doing. Let me hear what's happening and what are some of the barriers you're facing? What are some of the wins you've been having? What, is the group gelling? I'm going to attend some of those executive committee meetings just to be able to observe. I want to see, how that team's gelling. How can I help? What can I bring to the table to offer them? But also, I just want to watch the dynamic. Who's respected? Who's listened to? Who's coming to the table with ideas? And how are they presenting those ideas? How can we help to polish and refine all of the beautiful leadership skills that are already emerging from these student leaders?
Yeah. So it sounds like succession planning is obviously a
It's
huge
baked into the
factor.
cake.
Baked into it. So you look at that leadership pipeline by getting to know the next teams, but what about the role of advisors or, returning leaders playing into your success? What role do they play?
In THON, there is a student advisor who helps with the rules of university engagement, for lack of a better term. And that person is really largely helping with the logistical pieces of things. Are there contracts that need to be signed, facility restrictions that need to be followed? And that advisor really plays a critical role in those areas. And we work very closely as colleagues, separating the duties of how we are mentoring THON and helping them get to their ultimate goals and helping to identify where are the learning opportunities along the way, because this is a student leadership development process as well. So we don't want to do everything for them. We can't. This is a generation that what I've learned, and part of what I have adjusted along the way, is our methodology is show, don't tell. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but can I show you an example of how this worked in a previous year or in a different area? Would you be open to learning about XYZ? Okay. Once that openness is there, let's talk through what we've seen. Can I give you the example? How could you see how that could apply to THON? So we always want to be prompting that learning opportunity as we're going.
Gosh, that is such a great way. And I'm sure even, not just with youth volunteers, that's such a great approach.
Human beings, right?
Such
we
a
don't
lovely,
like to be told
gentle
what to
approach.
do.
Exactly. So you just mentioned that, working with this up and coming generation, you're kind of getting that front row seat, right, to this next generation. And everyone is clamoring to know, what are we learning about Gen Z? How are they going to impact the nonprofit world? So what trends are you noticing, not only in the way they show up as leaders and as participants, but how they give and what they respond to?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think fundamentally one of the things that we keep in mind is they're human. Just like any other generation, they're human. And every generation has some themes that emerge within, but fundamentally we are all good people wanting to do something that is positive to impact other people. That is one of my fundamental beliefs in development, is that everybody wants to do something good. They just don't know what to do or how to do it. And that's the role that we get to play. And when we approach it from that perspective, the generational identifiers are not as intimidating as they could be otherwise. What I see in this generation, not a surprise. Technology is super important. Working with students has forced me to stay current with technology in ways that I might not have otherwise been forced to do. And that is a great learning opportunity for me as a lifelong learner. And I love that they're eager to ask questions. What about this? We've heard about this. Can we move in XYZ direction? What's the barrier for this? So I think one of the hallmarks that I see is curiosity. So, how do we continue to encourage that curiosity and not shut down when those questions are being asked, not be threatened by new frontiers or explanations of like, okay, so this is how this works. How could we apply it differently based on your question? And not be afraid to explore new technology, because it's going to continue to evolve and new things will emerge. And it honestly has forced us into what I call sometimes, I feel like we're in the field and we're cutting down the path, right, for the whole university in some ways on payment processing changes, or when we moved into a different online giving tool, that really paved the way for others in the development division at the university to be like, oh, hold on, maybe we should be looking at this other tool. But the student questions are often driving some of those conversations and that work to clear the path.
Well, I remember we were so lucky to have a member of your team and one of your executive directors join us at the conference 2 years ago in Philadelphia. And even something as simple when I asked, how do you communicate? And he said, we do everything in Microsoft Teams. And I thought, well, gosh, we think of that as the work world. We think of that as, for the grownups in their offices. We don't think of that with college students. And it was I remember being kind of blown away thinking back to my own college fundraising days of, a little bit of email, probably very reliant on in-person meetings to get things done. So just even leveraging a communication tool like that.
Yeah, it has been wonderful for us to be able to learn the technology that they are immersed in, and that will then be the fundamental foundation for their business lives later. So again, like I think of so much of what we get to do with these students as being foundation building for them to launch into successful careers and to be involved members of their community in philanthropic endeavors. Wherever they land, they will take what they've learned here with them to better the world in ways that we haven't even begun to measure yet.
I can imagine. So I know I did some fundraising and student fundraising in college. I worked with student fundraisers earlier in my career, but you've been doing this for a while. So how has your approach to working with student leaders evolved alongside the students? What's different about them today as compared to a decade ago?
I would say there are a lot of similarities. They're dedicated to the mission. I think back to the very first peer-to-peer conference that I went to. I remember hearing, the fundamental things in peer-to-peer are about, is this a group that's dedicated to a mission? Are they doing an activity they enjoy? And is there a sense of community? And if you can, it sounds really simple, right? Those three elements. Oh my gosh. But to build that successfully and then maintain it is a lot harder than it looks when you're looking at those three individual pieces. So I will say a lot of that is the same, but I have also watched the evolution of how they are considering, in the past, they considered some of their volunteer service as the contribution to giving. And now they are personally giving also through their giving pages, in addition to the contributions of their time, in ways that is vastly different from what we saw when I first started in this role. And I love that they are embracing how powerful it can be to be the first person to make the contribution on their giving page. Will you join me in supporting financially this thing that matters so much to me? So that's one of the key differences that I see right now in how they're approaching this, which again builds that behavior that I think they will take with them and make impacts in their communities after they are graduated from Penn State. I don't want to say that they're finished with THON or 4 Diamonds, because that's the next frontier. How do we keep them very actively engaged after graduation?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I've noticed with this next generation is they're less focused on competition with each other and more focused on competition with themselves, of always being about, how do I do better than I did last year? Not how do I do better than this other person or this other team. And I think that's refreshing, but also can change our approach.
It absolutely does. One of the things that we have implemented, and I don't remember how long ago we did this, but we instill servant leadership training into our time with our executive team every year. It reinforces those fundamentals with our team. It gives us shared language. It gives us shared spaces to come back if we're heading in different directions. How do we realign? And coming back to those fundamentals has been really helpful for us. And what I've seen as part of that shift is a mindset shift in their culture about, we're here to serve that patient, more than driving, my team is not here to serve me. I'm here to serve them, here to serve others and providers. And the ultimate person that we're serving is the patient. So I do think that we've had some cultural shift in that has been very beneficial.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just a resume builder. It's always a revenue builder, is what I was going to say.
Absolutely.
It's not a resume builder as much as I feel like it kind of used to be.
I think there were certainly students that may have looked at it that way. One of the ways that we've responded to that over the years, we get that question like, what if somebody's coming only for this? We've said, hey, people can come to this for any reason that satisfies them. The bigger question is, what keeps them here? What are we reinforcing the mission? Are we helping them fall in love with this mission? Are we emotionally appealing to them, opening their heart? Because that's what's going to keep them here.
I love that. So talk to me about what this means then for your staff. So you've got this, not only your succession plan, your pipeline for future leaders, but I imagine this has opened the doors to quite a few staff members that have joined your team post-graduation.
Yes, we have been implementing an internship program. It's a postgraduate internship program for several years. We have 3 to 4 roles every year that are filled by postgraduate interns. It's a paid 1-year commitment. And what I have loved about that has been we have had the opportunity to hire several of those team members into permanent full-time employment with 4 Diamonds. Some of them have taken roles in other areas within our university development office, which is fantastic to watch them grow and spread their wings. But it has given us great insight into some of the inner workings that we might not have otherwise seen. I've had at least 3, if not, take this back. I think we've had 5 members of previous executive committees of THON who have had staff roles with us as part of their career progression. And it has been so beneficial, I think, for all of us to be able to help them grow in their development careers, but also to have that younger perspective. They're recently out of college. Help me understand what was important to you when you were here. Help me understand what was important within a committee or a captain structure. What were some of the drivers? Help me to know new music so that I can show up and still feel connected and have relevance. Because I'm not their age anymore, right?
Right. I love that. I kind of alluded to this. I got my start in non-professional fundraising in a college fundraising program, and then ultimately went on to become an employee at that organization that I supported. And I remember I didn't know that the job of a professional fundraiser existed out there, but then I realized it was a great match for my skill set that was out there. So I love that y'all are offering that opportunity. And I have so many thoughts on how we can evolve the staffing structure for peer-to-peer organizations, but that would be a whole nother podcast episode or a conference topic or a webinar topic at some point.
Happy to continue that.
Yes, right,
time.
Suzanne.
Yeah.
So if there are people listening who want to know more about what you do at 4 Diamonds, possibly even how they could get involved, or if they have a college student, how they could get involved, where can we direct people?
We can direct people to 4diamonds.org. On our website, you can learn about THON. You can learn about our mini THON program, which we haven't talked about in depth here yet today. You can catch us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, well, now X. And you can likewise find THON at thon.org and find them on all of the social media platforms too.
And so we're counting down until what's the date of THON for 2026?
Oh, we are the 3rd weekend in February.
So right around the time of the peer-to-peer conference
every year.
We
will come out of there on Sunday and we'll join our colleagues at Peer-to-Peer in Baltimore, I think on Tuesday or Wednesday that week.
I love it. Well, Suzanne, thank you so much for sharing your insights. And I just think whether you're working with college students or committees that are the same age as you or older than you, there's a lot of lessons to be learned about how you onboard, how you motivate, how you keep them focused on the right tasks at the right time so that, they're getting a great experience out of their leadership involvement as well.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think we really have an opportunity to do within the peer-to-peer space, we talk about being in this post-COVID world, and we know that people are desiring connection, but might have forgotten how to establish that for themselves.
Yep.
And I think our industry really has an opportunity to help people re-engage in meaningful ways and rebuild connections within their communities about things they care about. And that is one of the things that I think THON serves, Mini THON serves, 4 Diamonds serves, and this whole industry serves.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. Well, Suzanne, thank you so much. And we'll see all of y'all on our next Soapbox episode.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
The P2P Soap Box is produced in partnership with True Story FM. Engineering by Pete Wright. Music this week is by Shy Life. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, we hope you'll consider doing just that for our show. But the best thing you can do to support the P2P Soap Box is simply to share the show with a friend or colleague. Thank you for listening.